You're listening to the Real Deal Podcast, Episode 5, for the week of May 8th through May 14th, 2016.
Hello and welcome once again to another episode of The Real Deal. Thanks for joining us again in the Man Attic. I'm Kevin Polly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And it's Mother's Day weekend, and what a weekend it was at the box office, as we're going to take a look at what has been one of the most talked about and critically acclaimed films of the year, Captain America Civil War, the third in the Captain America series and the newest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to talk about that one here today. Brian, wow, what a film. You've seen it now 4 times. I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
We've both seen it in 3D and in 2D, so we can talk about that as well. But man, oh man, what a film. Starting out here, your thoughts on Captain America Civil War.
Well, I mean, it certainly delivered on the promises of the film. I mean, it promised you a lot of action. It promised you a lot. I mean, and it was
out
just,
the gates swinging.
Oh, absolutely.
With action,
I mean, you start out with a setup and an amazing fight scene.
And what's funny is you can honestly say any one of those fight scenes leading up to the big one would have been like the climactic fight scene of almost every other like action film. I mean, they're that big. I mean, there's that much going on in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've I have to say that, I mean, there's no moment where it drags.
No,
absolutely,
not at all.
I mean, there's a lot of action in it. There's a lot of good human elements to it, also.
Very much so.
Yeah.
This film. Man, there are some funny moments in this film, and they're never to the sake of just like let's throw in something because we got to have something funny. They're always relevant to what's going on in the scene, I think. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough trick to do when you're dealing with an action film that's also very heavy on the drama side as far as what's going on. To find those little moments of comedy, though, it's really, I mean, it's something that Marvel's done very well. And I'm not going to say that this is a funny film, but there are definitely some laugh out loud, I mean, like hard laugh moments, and many of those from some of the newer characters they introduced into the film. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But, this movie had there's so much riding on it. The Marvel cinema has been building up to this moment. You know what I mean? Like they've been building up and building up and building up and building up. And after Avengers: Age of Ultron, there were seeds planted in that film that kind of paved the way to Civil War happening. And now, boom, here we are. This film is a big film in every way, shape, and form. It's a big cast. It's big action set pieces. It's a big idea. The concept of, do these people with superpowers, should there be an accountability? Should they report to, a government or a United Nations? There are a lot of big things with big ideas, big questions. It's a big film in every way, shape, and form. But at the same time, what I loved about this movie is it never sacrifices its characters. They are never just in there for a set piece, and they're never just in there just to be in there. Everybody has a moment to shine in multiple ways, not just in the action department, but just in their characterizations as well. And that's not an easy task when you've got such a big cast.
Yeah, and the one thing also that you may have noticed is that, yes, we have heroes that choose sides, but they don't have the same reasons for the sides that they choose. They all have their own individual reasons for being on the side that they're on. And they're not, I mean, it's not the same thing for all the characters. So they have their own agency and their own motivation for doing what they do. And when you realize how many characters we're talking about here, that nobody gets short-shrifted.
No.
Nobody. There's nobody there that doesn't serve a purpose in this movie. And I mean, this is, again, the Russo brothers. Don't they just know how to pick talent? I mean, these were a couple guys that were doing sitcoms. I mean, you look at these guys on the surface, it's like, oh, we need to give them a huge action movie.
Well, and it's funny, when they first got pegged for the Winter Soldier, I was nervous because Cap's my boy, and the Winter Soldier is such an important story in his character development, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know how I feel about a bunch of comedy guys doing this movie. And I will still say to this day, and I'll have to watch Civil War a little bit more to let that soak in. But to me, still at this point, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is the greatest comic book movie I've ever watched. Civil War, I'm talking minuscule points in between, but it's that great of a film. And so for me, going into this film, man, my confidence in them was super high. because they delivered, I mean, like tenfold with Winter Soldier. And here you get to see the action set pieces that were so amazing in Winter Soldier. You get to see that cranked up to 11. And man, every single action scene, every single one is awesome. Every single one builds and builds and builds until you finally get to the big airport showdown, which is arguably, you could make the case that that's not only the best comic book action sequence, that could be the best action sequence I've ever seen in my life.
It's so nuanced. There's so much stuff going on, but you never get lost in it, in the action.
The geography is always there. You always know where you're at in that fight, which is amazing to say that.
I would never thought, again, to think the Russo brothers could be maybe some of the greatest action directors we've ever seen. I mean, to me, they're really setting the bar for action.
I'll just say this: if I were the James Bond folks, I'd be trying to do whatever I could to get them over to do a Bond film. That's all I'm saying, or a Mission Impossible film, or something. I mean, these guys really got it. And the thing that they do so well, and it's something that Joss Whedon did very well with the first Avengers film, and even with Age of Ultron, is that they work well with large casts. They allow those characters to have their moments to shine. And every character, as you said, nobody gets shortchanged. Nobody. Everybody has a purpose, what they're doing, and when they're in that big fight, everybody has moments of just sheer awesomeness. Like the kind of stuff that your inner 5-year-old is just screaming at the screen at this is the most amazing thing ever. Let's talk a little bit about the story here, because I think that's what is such an interesting thing about this movie is that the big thing is you've got the superheroes going against each other. They're on two different sides. But what's interesting is that the sides that they are on, the script does a very good job of allowing you to understand each viewpoint. They don't ever because it is Cap's film, you think there could be the tendency to make it that Cap's the only one who's right and Tony and his crew are not. But they don't go that route. No. They very much leave it up to you to kind of make that decision for yourself. And, who you're going to side with. Are you Team Cap? Are you Team Iron Man? And, that's the great thing about it is you see the characters go through some genuine thought process. You even see some who go one path and then switch to the other. So it's really interesting to see, again, the nuances there. And what's really great about the film is as big as the film is, and it's a humongous film, it's still Cap's story. They do a really good job of still allowing him to be the focus thing. Now, yes, there are moments where he's not even in the scenes.
Right.
Like, Tony Stark meeting Peter Parker and those kinds of things. But it's always his story. When it's all said and done, when it's all wrapped up, it's still his story. And I think that's what's, again, a big trick to pull off, and yet they do.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of people ask me, am I Team Cap? Am I Team Iron Man? And I always say the same thing. I'm Team Black Widow. Because I do find myself shifting alliances through this movie because nobody's really wrong.
No.
I mean, this is not a story where, in a lot of stories, you might say, well, you might play it off as, one side is well-intentioned, but they're just wrong. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, that's not really the case.
No, it's not.
Both of them have very legitimate points to be made.
For me, I think where I side with Cap, not only just because, of Cap, but I think the thing that really he talks about that is the thing that I would be most nervous of is if a team like that with those powers, if they report to a UN.
Yeah.
Well, as Cap was the first one to point out, everybody has agendas. Mm-hmm. What happens now when, say, there's a major crisis that happens and the UN says, nope, we don't want to get you involved. Yeah. And something could have been stopped but isn't. Or what happens when within the United Nations, you have countries that start having agendas against each other, and they start using those things to meet those agendas. Yeah. That's where, to me, the biggest thing is, that's why they can't do that.
Well, there's that old saying, a camel's just a horse put together by a committee, And, I mean, obviously, a lot of the countries that signed the
Sokovian Accord,
they're basically people that they realize that they have dealings that are a little shady, that may not be in the best interest of the world, that they signed this accord because they feel like, a level of bureaucracy between us and the Avengers would be a good thing. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at protection. It's like, we might be doing some stuff that maybe the Avengers would want to get involved in, but hey, we can, we've got this level of bureaucracy that can protect us from the Avengers. And that's obvious there.
Yeah.
But again, on the other side, too, it's like, you can kind of see that, Stark's point in that, people need to trust us. They can't be afraid of us.
Right.
And, it's a document. It allows us some PR. It allows us to smooth some things over.
Well, he even says, "Look, there are things we can change once we get this thing passed.
Right.
Let us patch up a few things here, and it'll be totally golden."
Yeah.
And I think there's a part of him that believes that, but I think there's also a part of him that's wrong, like that kind of knows that that's just not really how it's going to work. You can sit there and say that and think that it's going to happen, but ultimately it would not, because the powers that be would not allow that to happen.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, this is a point that we could sit down and that we could debate. And
yes.
And it's funny because when you look at, I'll give you two examples, and we may start dipping into spoiler territory with this, but I kind of feel like people who watch this show, they've already seen this.
Most likely. And the thing is, too, this is a film that's really kind of hard to discuss without getting into that territory.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I will say a heads up that if you've not seen the film, please go see it. Let's go ahead and tell you right now, spoiler, we loved it and we recommend it. Go see it, check it out, then come back here and get involved in the discussion. Right. And as always, if you're watching, leave notes below in the comments, because we'd love to hear what you guys think about this movie, because this is a big film.
Right.
So,
but I would say, I mean, you look at two characters that you could say are Team Iron Man, although I say Black Panther is sort of
he's out for one purpose, and that's revenge.
Exactly.
He'll side with whoever allows him to get that revenge.
Exactly. But you look at characters like Black Panther and Spider-Man, and their core belief really works better for Captain America's side. But that's not, the situation didn't kind of fall that way. Because there's that wonderful scene in the UN where Black Panther says, it's like, I just feel like a room with 2 people could get more done than a room with 100.
Yeah.
And of course, when in that scene in Queens where Tony Stark's talking to Peter Parker and he says, why do you do this? And he said, look, when you can do what I can do, and you don't do something, and you don't do anything, and the bad thing happens, you're responsible.
Yep.
He's basically at that moment, and you can tell that Tony Stark even knows this, is that this little kid just argued for Captain America's side.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah.
He ultimately is Team Iron Man. He's kind of manipulated a little bit to be Team
Iron
Man.
Yeah, you can say that.
But he's a kid.
He's a kid. And he sees a chance for him to be able to better himself, perhaps better his lot in life with Aunt May, and you totally understand why he does what he does.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, ultimately, he's wanting to do the right thing.
Yes. All of them, but that's the thing. All of them ultimately are.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's what makes it so heartbreaking, is they were so smart to save this story to this point in the telling of their universe, because we are so invested now in who these characters are. Mm-hmm. And even the ones that they introduce are so well developed that we are with them immediately. I mean, and it's really Black Panther and Spider-Man, and wow, Black Panther and Spider-Man steal this film.
Oh, yeah.
Flat out will say it right now. They steal the film. Mm-hmm. Every time they're on screen, you can't take your eyes off of them. They're absolutely just note perfect. I mean, everything about this. But then everything about the characters in this film is note perfect as far as I'm concerned. But again, you look at the fact that with all these characters, we've watched them grow to this point. And that's what makes it, as a viewer, when you're invested into these characters, that's what makes this rift so heartbreaking, is because they're all doing it for the right reason, and they just can't make it work together for whatever it is. And it's heartbreaking, and there's real, emotion, and there's real gravitas to it, because they've taken the time to build up to this point.
Right.
Now, I know we've kind of talked about not trying to beat up Batman v Superman anymore, but this is why Batman v Superman ultimately fails, is because they tried to do a Civil War basic story in the DC universe, but there wasn't the build-up to it. As I said, the best way to describe these two films is Marvel planted seeds a long time ago. And they've been watering that garden, they've been caring for it, they've been pruning out the weeds, they've been making it grow.
Right.
DC feels like they just bought a bunch of potted plants and planted them, not knowing how it was going to grow, how they might sprout, things might not work. And that's really where the problem is. They tried to go that route, whereas Marvel sowed those seeds, and we're up to this point now. And that's where the emotion of this film comes through.
Yeah.
It's really, there are moments that are genuinely heartbreaking. If you're a fan of this series, if you're as invested in this series as viewers like you and I are, there are moments that will genuinely bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
They really will.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've seen a lot. I mean, I've watched a lot of reviews, you know, and it's almost a game to some of these reviewers to see how long they can go without mentioning Batman v Superman in a review of Captain America: Civil War, because it's kind of difficult to do when you think about it. Because, you know, these two movies, I mean, it was Warner Brothers' plan to basically run on the same weekend as Civil War. I mean, these are two movies that are very similar in their story.
Yeah.
They both, you know, have their dark moments. You know, you have two villains. The villain in both movies, they kind of have the same MO.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the whole, and I do want to talk about Helmut Zemo here in a little bit.
Absolutely.
But they both kind of have the same MO. They both work in the same kind of situation where they are, where they're trying to manipulate these heroes into a situation to fight each other. You know, they both wind up getting access to very powerful beings, you know, that they could use to continue their fight on. And there's the whole thing at the end about a fight that involves one of the heroes' mothers. I mean, they both play the mother card in this thing. These are movies that are very similar. But the thing about, but you have one movie that has gotten critical acclaim that's doing very well, and you had another movie that didn't. And I think that, honestly, looking at these two movies, you can see what is systemic about why, like you say, why Marvel seems to stick the landing and Warner Brothers and DC they don't manage to do that. And it has to do very much with the fact that they have good story that they have spent the time to build.
Yes.
They have directors that really do love the source material, and I know Zack Snyder says that he's a comic book fan, but he hasn't convinced me of that yet.
He's a fan of The Watchmen. I do believe that. I mean, I believe that. That's about as far as I'll go with it.
Yeah.
The Russo brothers, you can tell, are really genuinely excited. There's an energy to this film that is infectious.
Yeah.
It's a fast-paced film. It slows down when it needs to, but even when it's slow, it's not slow.
Yeah.
There are quiet moments that allow you to just appreciate the work that's going on. But when it comes time to the action, man, they deliver it, and they give it to you like... Yeah. I mean, it is... Watching it with my son was awesome.
Yes.
Because he was just like...
Yeah.
And for those of you who are only listening, his mouth was just dropped the whole time. And then he was just laughing at just the sheer amazingness of it. I mean, he just was so tickled by what was going on and seeing it happen. But I will tell you this. I looked at him when Cap and Tony are fighting at the very end, and he had tears. Yeah. I mean, his eyes were just welled up.
Yeah. Because
his two heroes were fighting each other.
Yeah.
And it's a high-stakes fight. Yeah. And... if Steve Rogers isn't the person who he is, that fight ends very differently.
Yeah.
And Cameron knew this. And it was interesting to watch my 10-year-old process that fight and to see him watching it on such a base, just emotion level.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that this film, you know, you're not too old for it, you're not too young for it.
Yeah.
It's a movie that delivers. I mean, there were things he and I laughed at as hard as could be. And boy, did he love Spider-Man. And I'm telling you right now, when Spider-Man Homecoming comes out next year, kids are going to be Spidey fanatics, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be great.
Absolutely. And you know, the same thing, it was the same thing with my two nephews. I went to see it with my nephews, and they hadn't seen it, you know. So getting to watch it again through their eyes for the first time. And again, it's that moment. And that fight at the end, it's so intimate. After you had this huge fight, you know, you have this fight between two individuals.
Yes.
You know, so you get that moment of them going at and the thing about it is you sympathize with both sides so much. You're just watching two people that you care about fight, and you don't want to see either one of them fight.
No, you don't.
You know?
That's what's so heartbreaking about it is that it really is like, gosh, this film does everything so right. I mean, it really does. You really do see the stakes, you know, that are going on here, and it's a film that, you know, there's only so many words you can say about it without getting, like, you know, overdone. But it's true. This film really has the perfect blend of humor and action and, you know, the drama, the heartbreak. There are things that you'll cheer. I mean, there are moments where you just want to fist pump. Like nobody's business.
Yeah.
There are moments that will make you go, nuh-uh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Usually those accompany the Black Panther, and Bucky has a motorcycle bit that's about the friggin' coolest thing ever.
Yes.
Like, literally, everybody I've talked to is like, and can you believe that motorcycle? And I'm like, I know exactly what they're talking about. And I'm like, no, it's friggin' awesome.
He caught a ride.
He literally
He
caught
caught
it right. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about the things that we do like about this movie. Now, again, I'm not going to say that I can put it above Winter Soldier yet, because where Winter Soldier worked so well for me was just the idea of establishing Steve Rogers' world in a bigger place and him trying to still adjust to being who he is in the world that he is.
Yeah.
Now, where to me Winter Soldier works a little bit more as a Captain America film is that Steve is the true sole focus of that film.
Right.
Whereas with Civil War, he's a part of it. He's a big part of it. Obviously, he's one of two halves. But there are a lot of... The film is a very big film, and it's not as intimate as Winter Soldier was. And it's that intimacy in Winter Soldier that I still think is what makes it, for me, the best comic book movie I've ever watched. But again, over time, Civil War may very well overtake it just on the sheer spectacle.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you this, you've not seen a comic book film like this ever. Not even looking at the Avengers or Avengers Age of Ultron. You've not seen anything on this level yet.
Right.
So let's talk about what we do love. You know, coming out the gates, you have an amazing action sequence involving Crossbones.
Yes.
Which was so cool to actually see him, and man, he is B.A.
Yeah.
It is like a brutal, brutal fight, and you get to see some really cool things in action. You're seeing the team that Cap has assembled really doing their stuff. You see Falcon, and man, thank God Falcon gets so much more time in this movie, because Falcon will become truly one of your favorite characters watching this film.
Oh, yeah.
The way he moves, the way he uses his wings, his attack style and stuff, and you get Red Wing.
Yes.
Friggin' Red Wing is there, man, and it's awesome. It's so awesome. It's the only thing that they could have done with Red Wing that would work, and he works. This opening sequence, though, you get to see, you know, Black Widow just go berserk. You get to see Scarlet Witch do some incredibly cool stuff. You get to see Cap being Cap, using that shield and flinging that thing like nobody's business. You see Falcon using his wings as shields, as ways to hit people. I mean, man, he's just incredibly awesome. There's so much cool stuff in that fight scene. But then it ends with a tragic moment, and I'll say no more about that, but it's what sets really the tone of the story in motion. Yeah. And then you get to go back to the Avengers compound, and we get to see Vision. Yeah. And what an amazing thing when you see Vision, like he is in the comics at times, when he's being human, to see the Vision walking around the compound in slacks and a sweater is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, and you start seeing where they're already planting the seeds for him and his relationship with the Scarlet Witch. And I love that so much. Yeah. Paul Bettany is so fantastic as Vision. And those little moments with him and the Scarlet Witch are just charming, great moments. They don't take up a whole bunch of time, and they don't have to. But there's enough going on there that, especially if you're a fan of the comics, you're like, oh, it's Vision and Scarlet Witch, and they're starting to hook up, and that's so great.
Oh, yeah, and you know, the thing about it is one of the best lines that sets a lot of this stuff up is that moment, you know, when Scarlet Witch is trying to leave and Vision isn't letting her because, you know, Tony says, we got to keep her in the compound. You know, it's like, Mr. Stark thinks you need to stay here, and she asks him, you know, well, what do you want? And he says simply, I want the world to see you as I see you. Yeah. And I mean, at that moment, that says, I mean, in one sentence, says like worlds of things about that situation.
It's a beautiful sentiment. I mean, it really is. It's a beautiful sentiment, and Paul Bettany delivers it with such charm and such grace and dignity. It's easy to take for granted the work that these actors do in these roles.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, as a comic book fan, as an actor, as a film geek, it's really beautiful work because they buy into it. They could all easily phone these characters in as just some comic book movie. Yeah. But they don't see it that way, and you as a viewer don't look at it that way. Yeah. They truly are committed to these roles, and there's really genuinely sweet moments. Vision and Scarlet Witch, whenever they're together, it's genuinely charming and wonderful. Yeah. And I hope that they get to expand upon that in future films because it's wonderful. The other thing, you know, going into the action stuff, you know, you get the setup for what brings in the Black Panther. and I won't get, again, not trying to get to too spoiler territory, but there's a major incident that happens, and he comes into action, and it appears that the Winter Soldier is responsible for what has happened. So we get to see Bucky come into play.
Right.
And he's been off the grid. He's been trying to figure out who he really is, and so we find out that he has been framed. But it's interesting to see the fight. There's a tremendous fight inside of the apartment complex where Bucky's staying at, with him and Cap and all of these guards that come in. And man, it's awesome because they're trying not to kill anybody.
Right.
And Bucky even says, "I'm not going to kill anybody." Like, he's past that point now.
Right.
And so you get to see, him and Cap trying to like get out of this place without hurting anybody any more than they have to, and it's awesome because they kind of have to put on some gloves in essence. They got to kind of pull back because both of these men could literally shatter necks in a heartbeat and not even think about it, And then you get to that street chase with Bucky and Cap, and then Black Panther jumps in, and I'm going to tell you, man. Every time Black Panther's on screen, it's friggin' magic. Yeah. I mean, it's absolute magic. And Chadwick Boseman is phenomenal as T'Challa. What I love about it, again, if you're a comic book nerd, the little details, every time Black Panther lands, he's quiet.
Yes.
Because it's vibranium.
Yes.
Stupid comic book science logic, but damn it, it's there.
Yes.
And by God, his vibranium suit, even when he gets shot, it nerfs the sound of the bullets because it's vibranium.
Exactly.
It's awesome. It's so great. I'm geeking out like nobody's business.
Well, again,
it's so cool.
I mean, it's because, but they do a lot of these details. I mean, and I've heard other reviewers talk about this, but it struck me as well. It's like when Peter Parker first shows up, he's a kid with a Queens accent.
Yeah.
He sounds like a kid from Queens.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like it's a little thing. Yes, I know, but it's the little details, that they have, and I just completely marked out when it was like, "Hey, May,"
I mean, like really, we'll get to Tom Holland in a minute because there's so much we can say about him. But looking at that fight scene though with Cap and Bucky and Black Panther when they get captured and stuff, there's so much cool stuff going on there. And then of course we find out more about our main villain of the piece. And what's interesting about our villain is that he is not some superpower villain. He's not someone that has, he's not like a Lex Luthor with a huge bank account and all this other stuff. He is a man who was a tremendous soldier, and you find out that he has a connection to Sokovia with everything that happened in Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I will say this. If you're going to go see Civil War, I will tell you this. You need to have a little bit of homework done in that you have to have watched Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and you have to have watched Avengers: Age of Ultron. Those two you absolutely have to have before you go into this movie because there's a lot of things that won't make any sense at all, and they're important things in this film that you have to have. So do make sure if you've not been seeing every single Marvel film, do make sure you've seen The Winter Soldier and Avengers: Age of Ultron, if nothing else, before you see Civil War. But we find out that our main villain is involved. He has ties to the whole Sokovia attack.
Right.
And his logic for why he does what he does is interesting because there's a revenge factor there.
Right.
And it's very interesting how he plays that out because you think he's doing one thing, and then at the end you find out that it was something totally different.
Yeah.
And that thing that he was ultimately doing is so much worse than the horrible, bad, awful thing you thought he was doing.
Yeah.
And that's a great dynamic for his character. He's very interesting when he's on screen. He really is. Zemo is not the typical Zemo you think of in the comics. He didn't have the purple mask and sword and cool, like the Thunderbolts gear and stuff like that. He's not like that at all. He's a normal dude. But he is an interesting villain. He has layers.
Yeah.
He is human.
Yes.
And that's what makes his character really almost sympathetic at the end. Mm-hmm. Not totally, but enough is there where you kind of understand. You do understand, not kind of. You do understand where he's coming from.
Oh, absolutely. And I've heard a few reviewers say that they didn't like the Helmut Zemo character because they're like, he's not important to the story. That the heroes had enough reason to go at each other without him. And I'm going to disagree with that. And the reason being is that without Zemo working in the background, they might have gone their own way, but it wouldn't have gone as far as it did without him pulling the strings. And what I find fascinating about this character, without going into too much in a spoiler situation, he's not a world conqueror.
No, not at all.
He is. I mean, he is the anti Ultron. I mean, everything that Ultron was and what he tried to do, Zemo was completely different. He's a very intimate, personal kind of villain.
Yes.
And the irony of it is, in the end, he kind of wins, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't lose.
It's very similar to the end of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Where the Joker ultimately kind of wins. And in this case, he kind of ultimately wins.
I can see why some reviewers would say, like, oh, Zemo, the whole Zemo subplot, we didn't need it. Yeah, you could probably have done the movie without...
But it would have been, honestly, I think, a weaker film.
I think so, too. I really believe that Zemo and what he was doing in the background, it kind of helped the story along, and it gave us a sort of a view.
Well, and I thought it was interesting, the guy who played him is Daniel Bruhl, who is the sniper in Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
The one that they're celebrating, And so it's interesting to see him go from sort of a genuine villain to a villain in this piece who's not exactly on the same level. You think he is.
Yeah.
But then you find out ultimately that he's not. And I found that very interesting. But, there's also, with Cap, one of the most heartbreaking things in this film is a simple text that he gets. And unfortunately, we know that he has had the relationship with Peggy Carter, and as of this film, she is now no longer alive in the Marvel Universe. And it's interesting because it's there that he finds out that Sharon is her niece.
Yeah.
And he's kind of macked on Sharon a little bit. And there's a little oddness there, but there's a genuine relationship building between the two of them. And I really appreciated the fact that they were willing to go there. What I also like is that, again, we see the scene where the team is all together. And we get to see the return of Thunderbolt Ross, played by the always great William Hurt, who hasn't been there since Incredible Hulk. And it's interesting to see, when the initial discussion, because he shows footage from the original Avengers and Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron, and you see the damage that was done, and you see the number of civilians that were killed and all that sort of stuff, and of course the toll was rising.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you see them all sitting there together, you see Steve making the point about the UN and everything and agendas, but it's funny because you see right out the gates you see several of them, not just Tony, who are like, man, we need to be held accountable. They're right. We can't. And I found it very interesting. But the first one that says it is Rhodey. And what is Rhodey? He's military.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the two military guys are completely on the opposite sides of that. Rhodey says, yep, we need to be in check. Cap's like, nope, not at all. That's not the way to go.
Well, I mean, even Falcon, he's military.
Mm-hmm. But he's going to side with Cap because that's his boy. You know what I mean? Like Falcon, he sees his ultimate loyalty is to Cap. Yeah. And I love the relationship, how they continue to build that, and I love how Bucky comes in, and it's a bit of interference for it, but then he also becomes part of it, and it's awesome. So, there's so much going on. That's why it's so hard to tackle all this. This will be a long podcast. But anyway, moving on, we get more action scenes, and we get to, finally, the plan that Zemo has to get control of the Winter Soldier. And we see at the very beginning, there's an incident that happened in 1991, and boy, this is a critical incident for the film. But we see the Winter Soldier is involved in finding taking out a target and getting this stuff that's like the super soldier serum. And that apparently there were other Winter Soldiers being developed.
Right.
Which is a scary, scary concept. Because you see in the flashback, some of them are even better than Bucky. And that's a terrifying concept, if anything is. And so we see the whole thing of Zemo trying to get control of the Winter Soldier, Bucky, so that he can find out where these guys are. And, of course, that sets up a huge ticking time bomb because if this guy gets a hold of these folks, man, we're screwed. But from here is where, of course, we have the division of the team completely. And we have Team Cap forming and Team Iron Man forming. And Team Cap is kind of like the outsiders. These are the guys who are like, they understand that we're probably going to be arrested by doing this. And suddenly we get the return of Hawkeye. Yeah. And we get the return of Ant-Man. And we get to see him now in this. And it's interesting because you've got now Cap and Falcon and Bucky, and you've got Ant-Man and Hawkeye, and they're all together, man. They're all in this, And then you've got Tony putting together his team. And his whole concept is, we've got to find Cap and Bucky. We've got to bring them to justice, or they're probably going to be killed.
Yeah.
So, they have a genuinely good reason for finding them. It's not just, we got to find them because they're wrong and we got to bring them in. No. They understand that the government's coming after them. And unlike them, the government's going to shoot first. Whereas they at least hope they can reason with them and stop this from going further.
Right.
But then we get to have, of course, the incredible throwdown in the airport. But before that, we have the introduction of Peter Parker.
Yes.
And You cannot say enough good things about Tom Holland in this film. It is impossible to add enough superlatives to describe how wonderful he is and to see what is arguably the greatest Peter Parker and Spider-Man ever put to screen.
No question.
Ever. I will say right now, it's his role. Like Christopher Reeve owns Superman, this kid owns Spider-Man. He owns it. And that's the great thing about it. He's a kid.
Yeah.
He's a total teenage kid.
Yeah.
And he is the way... I mean, even his hair looks a lot like Peter Parker's in the original comics.
Yeah.
And he's nerdy, and he's not the popular kid, and he's awkward. And what's great about the film is it doesn't have to do his origin.
Right.
We don't have to see him get bitten by a radioactive spider. We don't have to see him lose Uncle Ben. We literally come into this. He's had the powers for 6 months.
Right.
So he's already kind of established himself as Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. So we already know this. We know who he is. We don't need to go through the backstory. And so it's so smart. They don't take us out to show us that. They just let it go right along. And he even gives us his own take of the with great power comes greater responsibility, which is what you just talked about earlier.
Right.
And it's a really wonderful thing seeing how geeked out he is to meet Tony Stark.
Oh yeah.
Like genuinely just can't believe that he's talking to Tony Stark. And the conversation between the two of them is utterly charming.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny and so charming, and you're just like, you're so happy for Peter Parker that he gets this chance.
Right.
Because he lives in a small little apartment with Aunt May, who, by the way, is played by Marissa Tomei. Aunt May's gotten younger and younger as it's gone on, and as Tony even says, boy, she's a fine-looking aunt. But he has like an old Macintosh computer.
Yeah.
I mean, like from the 80s. He's got he's coming into the apartment with a DVD player that he found, and it's so sweet, and you feel so great for him when he's like, man, I was just having a great day. I didn't miss my bus, and I found this awesome DVD player that still works, and I aced my algebra test. I aced it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
he's
just a kid.
Yeah.
And it's so charming.
Oh yeah.
To see, and you're so happy for him to get this chance to step up and be who he's supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know you're like the biggest Spider-Man fan. I know you had to have been just like putty in his hands at that point.
Oh, I tell you what, it's like this has been a Spider-Man I've been waiting for a while.
Yeah.
I really have, because I mean, a lot of us nerds and geeks who grew up, I mean, that's why we love Spider-Man, because he was one of ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was one of ours who made good. And I mean, and again, he's a teenage kid with teenage kid concerns. I mean, he tells Tony Stark, he's like, I can't go to Germany. I've got homework.
And Tony's like, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear
you say that.
Oh, it's such a great scene. And it was like, and there's subtle little things that they do. Like when Tony's holding up the vial of his webbing, and he throws it at him, and he throws it pretty hard, and you see how quickly he catches it.
Yeah.
It's a simple little thing.
Yeah.
But you start seeing quickly how quick his reflexes are.
Yeah.
And how he works. And
he's not even looking when he does it.
He's not even looking. And it's so subtle. And it's just, again, it's those little moments that they don't have to put in there that they do. And it just adds that much. It adds so much more like rewatchability value to it.
Oh,
I mean, it really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as you can say.
As I would know.
Literally saw it 2 days in a row. I mean, it really does. It
has
3
days in a row
for you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But it's amazing that it does have that kind of replay.
Oh yeah, and then once he gets into the costume and you get to see him do his stuff. I mean, he's awesome.
He is like perfect. This is the best way to describe it.
Note perfect.
He's note perfect. He talks too much when he fights. He's a smart aleck. He also is like the biggest geek in the world. That's why. Okay, when you get to the big fight, it's amazing. But there are two people in this that you're going to absolutely adore.
Yes.
And they are Spider-Man and Ant-Man. Because both of them are completely geeking out about who they're with and what they're doing. It's like, even though they're fighting to other people, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually talking to so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, it's when Spider-Man dodges a punch from the Winter Soldier and it's like, dude, you have a robot arm? That's cool. It's like, and you totally could see him doing that when he's asking, Falcon about your wings. Are they like a carbon fiber? Because that would explain how you're. It's like his science nerd can't quit. Like it's hilarious. It's so genuinely charming. And then I will say this: I think the funniest stuff in the film, and again, this is a film that's very heavy. Don't let us make you think it's a comedy. But the stuff with Bucky and Falcon, might be my favorite thing in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I swear to God, the scene where they're in that VW Beetle is like, I mean, that's one of the funny, and every time we saw it, the crowd went berserk at the response to that.
Right.
They are phenomenal. And then after they're dealing with Spider-Man and Red Wing gets involved, then it's the whole like, why didn't you do that earlier? I hate you. Just, oh my God. I mean, I cried laughing both times. Again, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Shaw are outstanding in the roles. I've been a fan of Anthony Mackie since way back. I mean, The Hurt Locker, of course, and then being a Marshall grad, We Are Marshall, his Nate Ruffin. Yeah. I've always said should have gotten him an Academy Award nomination. The scene where he talks about his shoulder is just, I weep every time I watch it. He really is an actor who gets into a character and he never phones it in. Right. And again, it would have been so easy with Falcon to just make him all brash and goofy, but no.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character.
He's taken a third-tier Marvel character and turned him into a first-tier Marvel character.
I mean, I would be, if they told me they were making a Falcon film, I'd be there. Like friggin' in a heartbeat, dude. I mean, I'd totally be there.
Oh yeah.
And be anticipating the hell out of that film.
Oh, yeah.
So he and Bucky get some amazing, great, character moments.
Right.
But when you finally get to the fight, dear God in heaven, I'm not even going to try to get into all the stuff in this fight, but I will say this. Watching it with my 10-year-old kid, I was like a 10-year-old kid. 10-year-old me would have lost his shit watching this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And my 10-year-old pretty much did.
Yeah.
It is the most incredible, 15 minutes of action because there's emotion to it. There's weight to it. There's humor in it. And you are always aware of what's going on. The geography is never lost. It's never shaky cam crap where you can't tell what's going on. It's in broad daylight. Let's talk about that for a second. Because the special effects in this, there's not one moment where I thought, oh, that's CGI. Not one time. My eyes completely believed everything they were seeing. And in this day and age, in the year of our Lord 2016, that doesn't happen hardly ever.
Yeah.
But I'm so invested in it. And the motion is there, and the sound and the action, it's all there. And it doesn't sacrifice itself for anything. It's always great storytelling going on in each beat of this action scene. There's story happening. There genuinely is. And that's what's so awesome about it. You are so engrossed in it, and the visual effects are so strong that you're just never taken out of it. Not once. Not once, man. And I've watched it now twice. In 3D and in 2D. And not once did it ever look false to me.
No.
And that's just incredible stuff. But there's a lot of in-camera stuff that they do. Like, if you've not seen the footage of Tom Holland doing his flips and stuff, that's really him doing that flip over and landing on that van. Yeah, there might be some wires involved, but he's really doing it. That shit's in camera.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about it. There is a lot of in-camera practical effects in this film.
Yeah.
Like cars exploding that are real cars exploding and cars flipping and stuff blowing. It's all right there, man. And that's, again, where the Russo brothers really get it. And I will tell you right now, if there was an Academy Award for Best Action Scene, this gets it.
Yeah.
They should honestly create an Academy Award for Best Action Scene so this film can get an Academy Award. Because I am telling you, man, it's tremendous. And it doesn't matter which side you're on. You're totally engrossed in every single second of that fight.
Oh, yeah.
Ant-Man does some of the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
But everybody does some of the coolest shit ever in this thing. Seriously.
Yeah.
Pardon my French for using the S word, sorry. But there's so much cool stuff, and every single character has a moment where you're like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Every single one, man.
Yeah.
And how on earth, you don't never see that. I mean, you never see that kind of thing.
Yeah, and
everybody does.
And you're talking like 12 characters?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how
it's amazing. Again, they were able to get so much mileage off of a lot of different things. I mean, there was so much emotion involved, and there was all kinds of. I mean, you'd have these two people fighting, and then they split off, and two other people would be fighting, and they would trade. They would trade off and all that, and this could have been so easily a huge cluster.
Oh, God.
People. And it would have been so easy to have, to focus on maybe a couple of characters.
And leave the rest of them in the background. Yeah, you totally
have them kind of scrapping in the background. But the fact that everybody is, it gets to express themselves. they all get a fist pump moment. They really do.
They really do.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
You know,
it's amazing.
You'll see stuff in this. I mean, you're constantly seeing stuff in this film, and you're like, I can't believe I just saw that.
Yeah. There are things where I never thought I'd see that, or I didn't think I'd see that now.
Yeah.
You know, I would just say that really, Ant-Man and Spider-Man, when this fight scene is over, you're going to be like, oh my God.
And you know, the thing about it, too, is that Ant-Man, I was sure that's going to, like, what's going to be cool to see him? But, I mean, he's not going to be like a major player in this fight. Oh my God.
We're not going to spoil anything at all, but let me tell you right now, he has...
Oh my God.
He has the most awesome moment. I mean, like, it is one of those moments where every time I've seen it now, the crowd is just like, whoa! I mean, like, they go berserk.
Well, he's actually got two major moments. One that you just, I mean, again, I don't want to go into the fight, but there's that first one where he squares off against Iron Man, and it's great.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It gets a great line.
Oh, yeah, his whole dialogue with Iron Man is hilarious. Everything that Paul Rudd does in this movie is great.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he first meets Captain America and he's shaking hands, he's like, I'm shaking your hand way too long.
Yeah.
And he like touches him, like he just can't believe that he's like looking at Captain America. And he's so genuine. And then Cap's like, now if you join us, you have to understand, you're going to be a criminal. And he's like, what else is new? And if you've seen Ant-Man, you totally get that.
Right.
It's everybody in that fight scene is amazing. I mean, really, Spider-Man does some of the coolest Spider-Man stuff you've ever seen.
Right.
His moments against Captain America are outstanding.
Yeah.
I love that Spider-Man is geeking out about everybody that he meets. Like, even when he's fighting Cap, when he steals his shield, he's all like, hey, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Spider-Man? Like he's supposed to know who he is. They even have a cute moment where they're talking about where they're from. It's a charming moment. It's weird to say it's a charming moment in the middle of a damn fight scene, but it is. And you see how those two are going to be friends in the long run. You can see where it's going to happen. There's just so many great moments. The fact that Spider-Man has his real web shooters and that he actually made the stuff, and he does some incredibly cool stuff with his webbing. He does some incredible just gymnastic type stuff. I mean, you really get to see him just be Spider-Man. I mean, he is Spider-Man Unleashed, man. I mean, he is, like, you start getting the vibe that, he probably could beat everybody on that field.
Yeah.
If you give him a chance for it at a fair fight,
Spider-Man
could probably beat every one of them because of his strength and his agility.
Yeah. His only thing he's got going against him is he's only had his powers for 6 months.
He's still figuring them out.
He's still figuring them out. But, he's obviously, again... and of course we know from reports we're getting about Spider-Man Homecoming that we're going to see a lot more of Tony Stark, showing up there and being able to have a veteran kind of groom him.
A bit of a mentor. Yeah, and the thing that's great about that is because Peter Parker's a science nerd and Tony Stark is like the king of science nerds. Yeah. So they make perfect sense to be friends.
They do.
And the thing is, we talked earlier about Tony kind of manipulating him, and it's not that Tony's doing it maliciously at all.
No.
He understands this kid has potential, and he really sees him as like the X factor in a fight, and not just because of his abilities, but he gets that this kid is something special.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, and I've heard people complain about. Well, yeah, I mean, it's cool seeing Spider-Man and all, but why does Tony tap this kid? He doesn't tap Daredevil. I mean, the guy's got a couple of military people. He's got War Machine. Why do you need Spider-Man? And it's like, to me, it's obvious. I mean, these people shoot bullets. Spider-Man shoots webs. He doesn't want to kill. He doesn't want to kill Captain America or any of those people.
He wants to capture them.
He wants to capture them. And Spider-Man shoots webs.
And he can capture things. And he's agility.
That was the plan. It's like capture them. He can tie them up so that they can arrest them. That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man's the perfect person to bring in on this mission.
Absolutely.
So
it all makes sense. So anyway, there's the big fight, and then we finally get to see what's going on with Cap and Bucky and Tony, and there's a moment in this, and it really, you have to see this film at least twice just to really capture what was going on. The second time you watch it is when you can really appreciate the performances, because the first time there's all the spectacle, and man, it really is like just wow. But Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans in particular do real masterful work in this film. They allow us to really feel the heartbreak that they're dealing with. There's a scene where they're in a Quinjet, where Cap and Bucky are in the Quinjet, and Bucky says something to Cap along the lines of, what's going to happen to your friends?
Yeah.
And immediately you see tears come up in his eyes. Because Cap is genuinely heartbroken about how far this has gone.
Yeah.
And where they're at now. and he's like, I'll make it right, and we still got this mission to complete.
Yeah.
And what I also loved is the setup to that is towards the end of the big fight at the airfield, is that Hawkeye and Falcon both say, look, you've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Because this isn't the main fight.
Yeah.
And in order for us to win, some of us have to lose.
Yeah.
And that is something you really realize at this point how dedicated they are to this man, and to not just him, but to the idea of what he's fighting for.
Yeah.
That we can't be a part of some UN agenda machine. That's not going to make things right. That they're willing to be captured and be taken in to the raft. Let me add that, because, man, my head exploded at seeing the raft in existence.
Yeah.
And my son literally was like, when that thing came up, I was like, oh my God, yeah, dude, I'm right there with you, Cam. I'm like, it's the raft. They get sent there. So they're in like the high security maximum prison of the raft. And it's heartbreaking, and then when you get to the end, the incident that happened in 1991 ends up having huge ramifications. Again, it's critical that you've seen Captain America: The Winter Soldier, especially the scene with Armin Zola.
Oh, yes.
Because it sets up everything that goes towards the end of this film. And
that newspaper clipping
is everything. And it's a moment where Zemo plays his master, his trump card. And, oh, God, it's awful.
It
is. It's genuinely
and what makes it, and without going into too much of the spoilers, it's that moment where it's like there's an inevitability. Zemo has played his hand expertly,
beautifully. God, he really has.
And at that point, it's inevitable, and you're seeing these two characters that you sympathize with, that you love, and there's no way out of this. They're going to fight, and possibly to the death.
Yeah.
And what can you? There's nothing to be done. You don't take a side. You can't take a side. You're just all you can do in the audience is just sit there, and your heart's breaking
because you can't stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that freight train.
It's a freight train, and it's not. And it's not even that moment where you're like, you're rooting for one side or the other. You're not rooting for either one of them. You're
rooting for it to end.
You just want them to stop, and you're
rooting for it to end mercifully.
Yeah.
And I would just say this: at the end of it, we will say no more than it is heartbreaking. No matter which team you side with, it's heartbreaking.
It is.
If you're invested into these characters like we are, and I think most people are, you'll feel it. Yeah. And there is a tinge of light towards the end of the film. And again, I won't say anything more, but I will say that Stan Lee has one of his better cameos.
Yes.
And Don Cheadle's response to it is priceless. It really is.
Oh,
It's oh my gosh, funny. There's so much happening in this film. It's so hard to tack down a review of it because, again, we don't like to give away the entire story. We don't like to give away all the spoilers. There's a great thing about this film, about seeing it in the theater with a crowd full of fans, because it's a very organic experience. Everybody is right there with you, and they're laughing at the same things, and they're choked up at the same things, and they're cheering at the same things. And it's the kind of movie that, so help me God, if you have one iota of interest in this film, see it on the big screen. Do not wait for Blu-ray and DVD to see this film. See it on the biggest screen you can possibly see it on, because films don't get much bigger than this. But what's great about the film is, as big as it is, with all the spectacle that it has, it's still an intimate film.
Yes.
And that is probably the toughest trick to make work. And as big as you thought The Avengers was, and as big as you thought Age of Ultron was, this film trumps them all. I mean, this is the biggest comic book film as far as the size of it, the scope of it, the amazing amount of action and fighting and visual effects. There's none bigger. There's none. Yeah. It's not even possible at this point. Until you get to the Infinity War, I don't even know how you will.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that I think really and truly, especially those with kids, if your kids have watched Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron and Winter Soldier and had no issue with those films, there's nothing here that's going to freak them out. There's nothing that they've not seen already. What I will tell you that, watching my son's reaction, the final fight is heartbreaking, and little ones are probably going to have a tough time processing it. Hell, adults have a tough time processing it. It's there's a lot of emotion and like an almost like just a go for broke fight that it's just I'm just going to keep on hitting until you fall down kind of thing, and it's both of them. That really it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, do stay through the credits.
Oh yes.
There's a great setup for the first one, and there is one post-credit scene that after all the credits, there's one little thing that comes back up. Now, it's not critical to any upcoming film. There's nothing about Doctor Strange. There's nothing about Thanos or any of that stuff. It's just a simple little moment with Spider-Man, with Peter. Let's say that with Peter Parker. This is what happened when he finally went home.
Yeah.
And it's charming as all get out.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it if you're as invested in the characters I think you're going to be when you watch it. You'll love it because the smile on his face at the end is so genuine. And you realize that, much like Obi-Wan said to Luke, he's just taken his first step into a much larger world.
Yeah.
And there's an excitement there for him. I mean, I'm smiling right now just thinking of how genuinely sweet the moment is. It's simple. It's not huge. It's not earth-shattering. But damn, is it charming. And I will say that about everything with Spider-Man. It's charming. It's note perfect. It's great. I'm getting a little choked up right now just at the overall...
Yeah.
The fact that this film exists and that they stuck the landing and that it's true to its characters, it's true to its source material. It never, like, just panders to the fans. There's not just action for the sake of action. There's not, let's just introduce this character just to get a crowd pop and that's it. The characters they introduce are introduced for a reason. And they make perfect sense in the logic of the film, and they're helping set up to expand the universe this much more. I will tell you this, and this is after everyone that I've talked to seeing the film. You are going to be clamoring for Black Panther solo film and for Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
You are absolutely going to be clamoring for those films. Man, and as note perfect as Spider-Man is, Black Panther,
wow.
Every single movement that guy makes is friggin' phenomenal. I mean, he is Black Panther come to life, man. It's absolutely just perfect. And Chadwick Boseman, his voice, I mean, everything about him. He is royalty, man.
Yeah.
That dude is straight fact royalty. And, man, he is absolute money. He is dynamic, man.
Yeah.
He is out of sight. It really is a movie where every character shines. Every character that you love, you're going to love them in this. Some that you may not have had that much of a vested interest in, you're going to find more of an interest in them when it's all said and done. There's loyalty at stake. There's security at stake. There are big things at stake in this movie. Now, it does not do anything to move forward with regards to the stuff with Thanos. There's no Infinity Gauntlet type movement forward on this, technically. But you can definitely tell where there's going to be ramifications from this that could impact things when Thanos finally shows up.
Yeah.
But the good news is, this is a film that, believe the hype, it's huge, it's big. I don't know what film this year will beat it.
Yeah.
As far as the sheer spectacle, as far as its box office, I don't know what's going to beat it. But I will tell you this, man. If you have any interest in seeing the film, go. Go see it anytime. It's worth matinee. It's worth the late night price. As far as the 3D versus 2D, I don't think you have to see it in 3D. It's not bad. And I definitely, when it comes on home, like for Blu-ray, I'll have it because 3D at home is always better. But it does give a neat depth to certain things.
The big airport fight scene.
The airport fight scene is really cool. It really does bring some things out in depth. Especially like when you're looking at things through helmets and stuff, it looks really neat.
Yeah.
So it's worth seeing if you're a big 3D fan. If you're not a 3D fan, you're not going to miss anything. This isn't one of those where you have to see it in 3D. Not like a Dread 3D or Avatar where you have to see it. No, you can totally get away without seeing it. But no matter how you see it, just go see it because if you have enjoyed the ride so far, by God, like this one is it, man. This is the ride you've been waiting for. It is truly a film that earns the title of a roller coaster ride of a movie. Man, it's like a theme park attraction come to life, man. Blown up right in your lap. It's fantastic. Brian, your final thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, it's certainly Disneyland with a heart. It really is. But instead of my last words, I'm going to give you some words from Brad Brevitt from IDBM, just to give you an idea of how this movie did this weekend. And I'm quoting from his article. Captain America Civil War scorched the weekend box office, bringing in the 5th largest opening weekend of all time. The massive debut contributed to Disney bringing in over $200 million this weekend as the studio became the fastest across the $1 billion mark in domestic earnings in just 128 days, decimating the 165-day record set by Universal just last year. With an estimated $181.75 million opening weekend, Civil War not only scored the 5th largest opening of all time, it is the 3rd largest opening for a film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In fact, compared to the other standalone franchise in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Captain America franchise continues to show the greatest film-over-film growth, as Civil War's opening is a 91.3% increase over the opening for Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Wow, and that was a huge weekend when it came out.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's nuts. The thing is, too, I think you can arguably say now that Captain America has the best films of the Marvel Universe.
Captain America is certainly the backbone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, and because The Winter Soldier, like I said, to me, it's still the best of the bunch. That film hit me on a different level. But again, I think Civil War, I could see it overtaking it in the long run. For first weekend of seeing it, it's barely beneath it.
Yeah.
But it's just a little bit beneath, because again, I think what I liked about The Winter Soldier was the intimacy of it.
Yes.
It is a smaller film. It's weird to say that it's a smaller film, but it's a smaller film.
Yeah.
And it's really just all about Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Civil War has more things it has to push. So Steve is still there. He's a very integral part of it.
Right.
But it's easy for him to get kind of lost in the shuffle of, like, Spider-Man and Black Panther and all this other great stuff. Whereas in The Winter Soldier, he is, again, it's a much more focused screenplay.
Right.
Same people wrote it, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and they're phenomenal in this one as well.
Oh, yeah.
Same directors again, the Russo brothers. They really get Cap.
Yeah.
And they really get action. And they really get the Marvel Cinematic Universe. These guys are the perfect guys to hand over the reins to take over for Avengers, Infinity War, whatever they were calling it, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
There has been a report that the Russo brothers are going to change the names around a little bit.
I have heard that. And that's fine, but whatever those films end up being, they're the perfect guys to be directing the next Avengers film.
Yes.
Just plain and simple.
Right.
That just needs to happen. So, this is, again, as we're wrapping up the review on it, I know we've been kind of rambling about it because there's so much that goes on in this film.
Yeah.
Truly, there is a ton. And one viewing is not going to be enough for you. I'm going to say that right now. You're going to want to see it again anyway. If you're a fan of these films, you're going to want to see it again. Yeah. If you've not enjoyed the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't know that this film will necessarily change you over, but I do think there are moments in it, like the action scenes and stuff, that will definitely make you say, wow, you know what, no matter what, I can totally say that was an amazing action sequence. The airport fight scene is truly worth the price of admission. My God, it's worth the price of admission. Yeah. It's worth buying admission 3 times over to see that sequence. So anyways, we're wrapping up the review of Civil War. Absolutely recommended for me, Brian.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I haven't seen it 4 times. I'd say it's kind of a given.
I give it a 5-star review, but I've only seen it 4 times.
Right, so
we'll wait till
we'll just say, for me, it really does get pretty much a perfect rating. I can't think of anything I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
Really and truly, I can't. And again, in a film this big, that's a hell of a thing to be able to say.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to admire this film to be able to cover as much ground as it did so deftly.
Oh, yes.
With no fat at all. I mean, everything works.
Everything moves the story forward. Every moment moves the story forward. Every character is moving the story forward. It's just really, really the definition of the word spectacle. Yeah. It really, truly is. It is a true spectacle to see in the theaters. Yeah. Please, please, please go see it. Now, let's move towards then the news of the week. As again, there's box office wise, really, there's not much else to say other than Civil War.
Yeah, no kidding. But, I mean, most of the news, to be honest, most of the news is superhero related.
It's probably going to be, yeah.
So starting out, Deadline reported on Friday that Ben Affleck has been given the role of executive producer on the new Justice League movie, working with director Zack Snyder and screenwriter Chris Terrio.
That's interesting to me because I feel like that's their way of saying that Ben Affleck's going to basically shadow direct the Justice League. But that needs to happen. Yeah. Zack Snyder has just shown now with Batman v Superman and Man of Steel that he just doesn't really get what these films need to be. Ben Affleck, folks, if you've not seen The Town and Argo, my God, see The Town and see Argo. Argo is one of the best films I've watched in the past 10 years. And it's proof why Ben Affleck should be directing these films. He gets it.
He does.
I mean, man, Argo is a tense film. There are still moments, though, that you'll cry laughing at. There's some brilliantly funny moments in that film. But, my God, I even knew the ending of that film. And I was still on the edge of my seat at the end of that movie. So, knowing that we're going to get him moving forward on the Batman film with Jeff Johns writing the screenplay and basically Warner Brothers just saying, go make your film.
Yeah.
Yep. You know what? I am so geeked about that, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
That film will be fantastic.
Well, and the thing about it is, of course, executive producer can mean a lot of different things.
Yes, it can.
And it can basically mean absolutely nothing. It's
could.
like you can give somebody an executive producer credit and they don't do anything in the film at all.
I really feel like this is their way of trying to shoo Snyder
let
out.
me bring this up because Devin Ferrasi of Birth Death Movies, here's a quote from an article of his, okay? Because he had talked to some sources at Warner Brothers, and this is what he had to say. My sources have told me that Affleck was incredibly unhappy about the reception of BVS. He felt humiliated after spending so much of the press tour saying how much better this film would be than Daredevil. On top of that, his agent was furious when Kevin Toots, I'm sorry, I'm mangling his last name, Tsujihara jumped the gun and announced him as the director of the Batman. There were still negotiations happening.
Oh.
This move seems to help placate Affleck while also edging Zack Snyder out of a controlling position in the DC movieverse. So that was Devin Ferrasi's take.
I feel like that needs to happen because when you've even had the director of Aquaman who's questioning about how he's going to make his film or if he's even going to do it, the director of The Flash getting up and walking away.
Yeah,
you need to. There needs to be some damage control, and Ben Affleck is the guy that can do that.
Yeah, well that's true
because
the thing about it is he's made Warner Brothers a bunch of money.
Oh, he has.
He absolutely has.
Argo, he also won them the Academy Award, man. Best Picture,
yeah.
Best Screenplay. I mean, yeah, dude, he's done some big stuff for them.
And again, I've always said that maybe Warner Brothers micromanages a little too much, but I think that they have enough faith in Ben Affleck.
I have faith in Ben Affleck to put that ship in the right direction. I really do.
I do. And I do too. And the thing about it is, I don't know how well Suicide Squad is going to do. I don't know. But it does.
I'm not super geeked about it. I will say, knowing that Ben Affleck is going to pop up in it as Batman makes me excited.
Yeah.
Because his Batman is fantastic.
But it certainly, and again, trailers lie. We all know this. But it certainly seems to be tonally different than this Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Which is good, honestly, for that film.
And if it does well and it's totally different, I mean, I've said this before, this could be the last nail in the coffin for Zack Snyder. Because if this movie delivers and it's not Zack Snyder tone, what are they going to do? And again, I don't want to sit around and beat up on Zack Snyder, but I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to beat up on Zack Snyder, okay, for just a minute. And I've never interviewed Zack Snyder. I can't say this. I can't say that I can read his mind or whatever. But the truth is, I'm not a botanist either. But if I see a tree with apples growing out of it, I kind of got an idea what kind of tree it is.
Fair enough.
Zack Snyder appears to me as somebody who's more concerned about getting his image on screen than he is as far in reaching an audience. Okay. And yes, I know a lot of people who call themselves artists who are so dedicated to protect their vision. Okay, but these aren't artists; these are dilettantes. Mm-hmm. Artists are about people who create their art to reach people.
Right.
And again, it's kind of going back. We talked last week about Purple Rain.
Yes.
And that was sort of a quandary that the kid, played by Prince, had. Is that he had his art and his vision. But, he realized that, reaching an audience is not about selling out.
No.
It's about communicating with your audience. It's your art touching other people. That's what artists do. They take their art and they form it in a way that it reaches people. That's when you actually do create art.
Yes.
And I think that Zack Snyder, again, it's been reported he's been butting heads with Warner Brothers execs. Because they're saying, look, your tone isn't working. And he's fighting so hard to keep his vision intact when what he should be saying to himself is, how do I reach people? I haven't done it yet. And I honestly think that if he's going to continue to fight for his vision of these movies, that he's going to get pushed aside. and maybe he needs to be.
You know what? Like I said, I defended him all the way through his career, basically up until Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Even Sucker Punch, like I said, not a great screenplay at all.
Yeah.
And there are people who try to defend it as a smart movie. I feel like it's a movie that thinks it's smart but isn't. But I can't deny visually, it's a spectacular film to look at.
Yeah.
It really is. By God, it's gorgeous. But you know what? I will say to the end of time, if it wasn't called Dawn of the Dead, I think most people would really enjoy Dawn of the Dead more than they claim to. I think Dawn of the Dead is an outstanding film.
So do I.
I truly do. I think it's an outstanding film.
Absolutely.
And I think that 300 is an outstanding film.
Yeah.
And I think Watchmen is absolutely an outstanding film. I think it's the best film that you could have made. If you have to condense that big-ass book into one movie and one movie only, it's the best film you could have made for all of that.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem with Zack Snyder and where things started to go south with him, he got the same problem that George Lucas got, which is when you start directing action in a computer, you forget how to direct it in front of camera lens.
Yep.
And I think that's the huge problem, because there's all this great motion in Batman v Superman, but it's all done by characters that are striking static poses, and they move the scenery around them.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to have a dramatic, action when you have your actors striking static poses and having the scenery move around them.
Again, too, you can talk about, like, with Man of Steel, I understand that Superman 1 and 2, the ones that Donner made, and I'll still say Donner made the second one because he did, basically, more than Lester did. But when you look at those films, yes, they're very antiquated in their special effects comparatively.
Right.
But I will say this. The fight scenes in Superman 2, as slower as they are and as somewhat goofier as they are, by God, it's still 2 or 3 real people engaging each other in front of a camera.
Right.
It honestly, if you're not trying to be a douche about it, looks more realistic because it technically is more realistic.
Right.
No, do you see like things shattering behind them and are they flying at supersonic speeds? No. But, again, they were limited in what they could do in 79 and 78. There's only so much you can do.
Right.
But as a kid, I never thought, oh, they're moving too slow. No. Bought into a hook, line, and sinker. I can still watch that film and enjoy it because the performances are there. That's really Christopher Reeve hitting Terrence Stamp. That's really, Terrence Stamp, like blowing something like this giant, he throws this thing at Christopher Reeve, and that's really a thing flying at Christopher Reeve, and it really does blow up. That's real. It's there. It has weight. It's genuine.
Right.
Because it was there in front of a camera, and they had to shoot it in front of a camera.
Yeah, and as hokey as wire work looks, even today, as hokey as it looks, it's always going to be more is always going to be more dynamic than computer CGI.
I agree.
It's always going to be that way.
I agree.
And again, I just think that Zack Snyder, he needs to start directing action in front of the lens again. I think he needs to get that skill back.
Look at the Russo brothers. Look at what they just did with Civil War.
Yeah.
Look what they did with Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier has some of the best hand-to-hand fight scenes. The fight scenes with the Winter Soldier and Cap.
Yeah.
When Winter Soldier throws that knife up and catches it backward, that's amazing. And that's right there. He really did that in camera.
Yeah.
And man, they make that shit work. God, it's tremendous.
You, at the very least, and I'm not saying never use CGI.
No, you have to. It's obviously, there are things they obviously use it for in Civil War. It's a given. But there's enough invested as far as in the wire work and the actual stuff that's happening in camera that when you do have to go to it for your big visual effect, you can make it work better because there's still real stuff happening in the foreground.
Exactly.
And that's
Plus,
in the background.
You haven't forgot what it looks like when something has weight.
Right.
So that when you see the CGI and you're editing your CGI, okay, that doesn't look quite right because I know what people look like when they're actually jumping around or whatever. I've seen it. I'm directing it, so I know that this isn't going to match up. We need to give these figures more weight in CGI. But if all you're doing is CGI, you lose that sense. You get a tin ear. So
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
You get a tin ear for action is supposed to look like.
Will not disagree at all.
Yeah,
I agree completely.
So there you go.
So moving on, we got Disney news. I think there.
Yeah, some more Disney news. Disney has announced that Alden Ehrenreich will be playing the role of Han Solo in the Han Solo prequel film.
Yeah, I don't know anything really about that kid. I've seen pictures of him, and I can see where he could be a good younger Harrison Ford. Yeah. There are other actors who I thought looked more like him. him, but this kid seems like he'll be good. And I look at it this way, right now with Disney's crew that they have working there with Kathleen Kennedy and her bunch, I'm going to trust them. I enjoyed Force Awakens, and I think, honestly, I might be more excited for Rogue One than I was for The Force Awakens. Rogue One looks amazing.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
And getting to see that trailer in 3D in front of Civil War, my God, that film looks huge. That looks amazing.
Yeah. Christmas is coming this year.
Yeah, dude, no joke. And I'm telling you, that right now, I feel like the same way right now with the Star Wars universe as I do with the Marvel universe. Until they prove me wrong, I'll have faith that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he was it a Coppola film? I'm trying to remember. He was. I forget. I'm trying to remember. He hasn't done a lot of big films. But the thing about it is, one thing that I've seen in Disney is I've seen that they can pick talent.
Yes, they can.
They see talent in ways that I think a lot of that maybe a lot of studios hasn't quite figured out yet.
Yep.
So, but again, Disney, they've. I mean, I've not. They have certainly, for me, they've earned my trust until they, So, I mean, I think that I'm definitely looking forward to the Han Solo movie, even though, I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be a prequel. I mean, some people are saying, this might be, we learn how he gets the Millennium Falcon, how he meets Chewbacca and all of that. But
well, I'm looking at the kid right now. He was actually in Hail Caesar.
Yes, he was in Hail Caesar with the Coen brothers.
The Coen brothers, which is
and
awesome.
Was it
Beautiful Creatures?
Yeah, there was a film. I'm remember. It's called
Tetro.
Tetro.
Yeah.
That's it. Who directed Tetro? That was the one I was thinking about. I know it was
real quick on that. That was
because I knew that
Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola. It was a Coppola film. Yes. So okay. So I mean he's had to have some chops, to work with these directors.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, no slouches.
No.
Coppola and the Coen brothers.
And he was on Supernatural, so he gets cool points for that
So
already.
he definitely gets cool points. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this
Very
film.
much so. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll definitely be there to give it a shot.
Okay. Well, here's something for a little bit of speculation.
Okay.
Sharon Stone appeared on the Late Late Show with James Corden Thursday night, along with Sebastian Shaw, who of course was there promoting Civil War. Corden asked Stone if she'd ever consider working on a superhero movie, which of course she did once. I'm going to see if you remember this, because let me put it to you this way. It wasn't a good one. In fact, it was
she was in Catwoman.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, she was the bad guy in Catwoman.
She was the bad guy in Catwoman. So apparently...
she really hasn't done one, let's be honest.
Exactly.
That was total garbage.
Okay, well, Corden asked Stone if she'd ever consider working on a superhero movie, and this is what she said. Quote, "I am going to do a Marvel movie. I'm just doing a wee part in a Marvel movie upcoming, and I can't tell because, we have to sign confidentiality agreements. But I'm going to be doing a wee part in a Marvel movie now. That's it."
Neat.
So, here's the question. What do you think she's doing?
Well, the upcoming films, we've got... Well, we know we've got the new Spider-Man film. We know we've got Black Panther. We've got Thor, Ragnarok. Could she possibly be an Asgardian? Mm-hmm. There's also been the talk of, Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. Would she be involved with that somehow in Carol Danvers' life? I don't know. Could she be popping up in Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of... I've been thinking about it, and I've heard some people express this, and I find this kind of interesting. What happens if her and Michael Douglas reunite?
Oh, wouldn't that be something if she's in Ant-Man?
If she's
Ant-Man and Wasp? Oh my God.
Yeah. What if she's
his girl who he lost in the...
Yes. If she's Van Dyne. Yes.
Oh wow! Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
You get the whole Basic Instinct reunion, so that'd be great. I love that.
I don't know
because Ant-Man and Wasp is coming up. I forgot that's in Phase 4. I forgot about that.
That's in Phase 4, and she does say she has a wee part. She said it twice.
Wee being could be that could be a little play on words there. Yeah.
I know. It's intriguing. Although I do have to say that Michael Douglas said if they wanted to bring Janet Van Dyne in. Hey, Catherine Zeta-Jones could look for work. I wouldn't mind that at all either.
Oh, no.
But I have
she's got chops, Lord.
But Michael
But there's a
Douglas-
part of it that's like Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone. Yeah, I'd be all about that. That's just awesome enough to work. You know?
So
I just watched Basic Instinct recently, and that film still holds up. So I'd be fine with that. I'd be
that
fine
would
with that.
be again. That would be a really interesting.
That would be, and it would be very Marvel of them to do it right now. They got that tongue-in-cheek moments when they need to, and I could see that being one of them. That would be fun.
Well, a little bit more Marvel news. The ladies of Marvel have been getting more love recently. In an exclusive Dateline interview, Kevin Feige announced that of the characters they are looking at to start a new standalone franchise, quote, I would say certainly that the one creatively and emotionally that we are most committed to doing is Black Widow.
Oh, it's about time.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson has totally proven herself capable of that. After Lucy as well, man. I mean, Lucy was like, you know, if she can do a Luc Besson action flip, by God, just go ahead and make Black Widow. Because she showed in Lucy that she can... I mean, that film was a hit. Yeah. And it's a weird film, and the ending of it definitely goes, like, way out there. Yeah. But every time she's on screen with weapons and stuff, dude, you're like, yeah, that's why she's Black Widow.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, if she can carry that film, you know for a fact with the Marvel folks working on it, they would make an incredible film for her.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'd totally be there for opening day. Dude.
Oh, absolutely. Now, also, the rumors are flying that indie filmmaker Emily Carmichael may be brought in to direct Captain Marvel. I find that really interesting because she's done some short stuff. Mm-hmm. She hasn't really got a lot of big film credits at the moment. One reason people are thinking that she might be involved is because Marvel's kind of hinted that in the Captain Marvel movie that you might have a star and a director with the same name, and of course Emily Blunt is the forerunner right now, odds-on favorite to be playing Captain
Marvel. I have no
Marvel.
problem with that.
Yeah, well, you know, Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, dude. Seriously.
So she can obviously bring it. But again, we get to a situation. It's like, well, Emily Carmichael, what has she ever directed? And I'm like, well, what action films have the Russo brothers ever directed?
Right, that's a valid point.
But because again, Disney's the star makers. They see talent. They have this ability to see talent.
Well, the cool thing is, it's honestly not really Disney. It's really Marvel.
Yeah.
Because Disney's really just letting them kind of do their thing. They're letting Kevin Feige rule the roost, and he has been finding tremendous talent.
Oh, yeah.
Both behind the camera and in front. So, again, Marvel has established such goodwill with me that I will literally just completely blindly follow them until they prove me wrong.
Yeah.
They have not proven me wrong with the Netflix stuff. They have not proven me wrong with their cinematic universe, because not every film is as good as the others, but I'm telling you right now, I have enjoyed every single one of the films. In some way, shape, or form, I have enjoyed every single Marvel film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some definitely more than others.
Yeah.
But by God, I've found at least something entertaining in every single one.
Well, and it excites me, too, that the possibility of them bringing in another female director, because we certainly need more of them.
Absolutely.
And I would love to see somebody, well, she won the... she won Purple Screenplay Award. She was basically, that is, it's an award for a screenplay, unproduced screenplay that absolutely should be produced. Peter Dinklage was one of the judges in this competition. She certainly has chops as a writer and a director.
Right.
I mean, she just needs something to...
And Captain Marvel's, if done right, is such a strong and dynamic character.
Yeah.
That, boy, she could really, really bring home some great emotion with the character, and really bring some real gravitas to it. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. With her and Emily Blunt working
Well, yeah,
together.
and Emily Blunt, seriously, man, she's so friggin' fantastic.
Yeah, so, again, nobody's announced anything, but...
Right, that was still kind of in the background, but boy, I tell you, that will be something. That really will.
Okay, let's talk some box office. You want to take a guess at what number one was?
I'm going to guess it was Jungle Book. No, actually, no.
That was number two.
It was number two, yeah. Civil War, obviously, number one with a bullet, and it was huge.
Yeah, 181,791,000. At this point, of course, the predictions might actually go up, because one thing I don't know if you remember is during Winter Soldier, Disney, they lowballed the figure.
Yeah, they did. That's right.
They did lowball the figure. It turned out it was a lot more than what they said. So, we may wind up, a lot of
but
people
still,
are saying,
182 million your opening weekend is never going to be something to sneeze at. Now, I know it came just a little shy of the Batman v Superman opening weekend.
Well, see, here's the thing. No, it didn't.
No, it was the opening day.
It was the third. No, it wasn't even the opening day. It was the Thursday preview.
Oh, okay.
It missed the Thursday. It missed the Thursday preview by $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it just blew it out of the water. You know.
Well, what's funny is, Batman v Superman's now made not just shy of $900 million, and this film is already sitting at what was it like worldwide, like 600 and.
Well, they're saying. Hold on a second. What they were saying was, over 200. They're saying over 200 million.
No, I mean like the overall total, like worldwide. It's a ridiculously high number. Like, it's.
Because the 182 million. That's just domestic. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the thing on Box Office Mojo. I always just. They had a huge week.
Yeah, it was gigantic.
They had a huge week, and I'm sure you'll get that total in a moment. But Jungle Book came in second with 21 million.
Which still, when you're going up against that film, that's a huge weekend for Jungle Book.
But you think about that too. It's like Buena Vista / Disney. They get 2 movies in a row.
Yeah, dude.
Actually, they got 3 movies in the top 10 at this point.
Yeah,
because Mother's Day, which we were kind of joking about a little bit, it came in at number 3. It actually got a little bit of a boost, but of course, this weekend's Mother's Day.
Right? Yeah, you kind of expect that.
So they show up at 9 million. The Huntsman: Winter's War comes in at 3,580,000. Keanu manages to. It slips a couple places to number 5 at 3,800,000 with Keanu. Barbershop actually, it drops a spot with at 2,700,000. Zootopia drops 1 spot to number 7 at 2,677,000. Although manages to hold on. The Boss stays at number 8 with 1,750,000. Ratchet and Clank drops 2 spots to number 9 with 1,462,000. And Batman v Superman manages to just barely hang on.
Okay, here's what I was looking for. Worldwide, and this is from our friends at Flickering Myth. Big thanks to Angus Hooveris, who has done a great job with the site and his friends. Angus and I go back to our Marshall days, and he's an outstandingly good dude.
Yeah.
Right now, worldwide, Captain America: Civil War is sitting at 678,391,000.
That's one weekend.
That's one weekend of domestic, and 2 weekends, or a little over a week now for worldwide. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. But Batman v Superman is still at number 10 with. It made 1 million.
It's still sitting in the top 10. I thought it was actually going to not be in the top 10. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. The thing about it is, though, when Captain America: Civil War hit in, from its last week, it lost 90% from its last weekend. It wasn't pleasant. But the thing about it is, Zootopia managed to keep legs. And Zootopia's earned more money this weekend.
Zootopia, seriously,
yeah.
Gosh, what a tremendous
over twice what Batman v Superman made.
Wow,
over twice, because again, Zootopia was, 2,677,000. Batman v Superman was 1,045,000. So, Green Room is still at this point it's at 15. With 343,000.
It still had a limited release. I really want to see that film.
Yeah, I wish they'd bring it out. Now, I will say this. Here's the funny thing. At number 20, with 230,000, is Deadpool.
Deadpool's still hanging in there, man.
Have you seen the Deadpool commercial for the Blu-ray?
Tremendous.
The Blu-ray.
The erectile dysfunction stuff is brilliant. It's so funny. So. Yeah, it's amazing to see how that film really has done what it's done.
Yeah, when you're talking about legs, and here's the thing too, is Kevin Feige. They asked him about Deadpool, and he said, when you do something that's unique like that, people are going to respond to it. But what I also noticed he said was, we're not going to try to duplicate that. We're going to do what we do.
Yeah.
See, and that's why Kevin Feige's smart.
Yeah, dude.
He is. It's like a lot of people were worried about studios taking the wrong lesson from Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kevin Feige certainly isn't doing it. I hope I hope.
No, I think we're seeing that they're, I think they're willing to say that, especially when you look at the Netflix stuff, that we can be a little bit darker when we need to be.
Yeah.
When the subject material suits it. Daredevil definitely did.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones definitely did.
Right.
Luke Cage will. And I like the fact that on the Netflix stuff they're able to kind of separate it just enough.
Yeah.
It's still in the same universe. It still has the Marvel flavor, but it's a little bit different, darker in tone, a little bit more adult.
Yeah.
But it still is at its essence a Marvel cinema universe piece.
Well, again, I hope that Warner Brothers doesn't feel like they need to chase Deadpool because, I mean, let's face it, Batman v Superman didn't make nearly the money that Deadpool did.
Nope.
It didn't.
Not when it's all considered, no.
Not at all. And, so... But again, I guess we'll see going on how things are going to develop. So, it's certainly something to keep an eye open for. Now, opening next week, it's kind of a small slate. We've got Money Monster, starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts.
Yep.
So that's the film about the financial expert who has a TV show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's where
and Clooney's always awesome to watch.
Oh yeah.
So that's I'm sure worth seeing just for him alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although this is going to be a rough slate to be walking into. And then we have
Civil War's still going to be making money. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see legs. Legs are going to be. But Marvel movies tend to have legs.
They do. They really do.
The other movie is The Darkness with Kevin Bacon.
Now, I haven't seen anything on that. But Kevin Bacon is always one of those actors.
Yeah.
I'll always give anything he's in the benefit of the doubt because he's Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. He's one of the. The premise of the film is they go out camping and they bring back something to their house, some sort of evil spiritual.
Okay.
entity.
Well, he did a good in Stir of Echoes. So we'll see what
we
happens.
could definitely see that. So.
Yeah, I could see that. Hopefully, it gets a wider distribution. I'd be game for seeing something like that. But of course, I figure at some point this week I'll be seeing Civil War again.
Yeah, you've got a lot of catching up to do, my man.
It's one of those movies, really. You can't stop thinking about it. It's exciting. I mean, the minute I was done seeing it on Thursday night, I was ready to go see it again. I mean, like it's that kind of thing. You know?
I mean, again, when you talk about the spectacle of the film. I mean, certainly it's something that holds up to multiple viewers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, wow, that was cool to see. I want to see that again.
Yeah,
and I mean,
it's that kind of film, no question.
It definitely.
So, wrapping up here, of course, to all of you watching, again, we very much appreciate your support and would love to hear from you in the comments. Did you see Civil War? If so, did you love it like we did? Who were your favorite characters? What stood out to you? Please, if you're going to talk spoilers, please make sure you make a note that you're talking about spoilers. Although, granted, probably everybody and their mother has seen the film by now. Yeah. So there's that. But still, let us know what your thoughts on it. And again, what films in Marvel Cinema Universe are you looking forward to that are still to come? What's amazing is that this year we get Civil War, but that we still have Doctor Strange coming by the end of this year. And that's so awesome that in November we get to see Dr. Stephen Strange come to life. Yeah. And my God, I'm so geeked about the idea of that. It's not even funny. And we get Benedict Cumberbatch bringing him to life. That'll be something special.
And we get X-Men Apocalypse.
In just a couple weeks, we get Apocalypse. Yeah, so that's going to be fun, too. I'm really hoping that film holds up like I think it's going to.
Yeah.
I love the idea of seeing the 80s era X-Men. That excites the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Seeing Storm with her proper mohawk is totally awesome.
Yeah.
So I hope the film works. I really do.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Days of Future Past. It was nice to see it kind of reset and right the wrongs that were X-Men 3 and Wolverine. So here's hoping that Apocalypse will continue on that trend, and Bryan Singer ends up giving us the biggest, craziest X-Men film yet. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, to those of you watching, thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate you chiming in and letting us know your thoughts below in the comments. Please remember to like and subscribe. We are also on Facebook and Twitter, so find us out there as well. And again, shout out to all those who are doing the review thing, man, the local podcasts and such. Make sure you're checking out Cinema Villainy. Our friends Dana and Matt do a tremendous job there every week, or whenever their updates are always a fun show. And if you chime in on their Facebook page, they'll be glad to give you a shout out as well. You'll hear some excellent music on there as well. So always a fun one to listen to. And of course, again, so the big dogs up there too. Chris Stuckman and the crew, really do appreciate what you guys are doing to further the idea of these podcast reviews, and so thank you so much for doing that. So that's going to wrap up this edition, I think. Brian, any final thoughts before we head out?
Oh, well, no, nothing so far. I mean, I'm continually working to improve the quality of this podcast and We may see some changes down the road in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But just keep bringing it. That's what we do.
That's all we can do. That's exactly all we can do. Well, anyway, again, thank you for joining us up here in the Mad Attic for this edition of The Real Deal. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Kevin Pauly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And thank you for joining us. And again, get out there. Hashtag Team Cat for me. Get out there and support it. It's a great flick. Go enjoy Civil War.